Good afternoon. So how many of you are here today with a friend? If you are, take a look at that person. Do you see a physical resemblance? If not, there's probably something else that you have in common with that person. Do you have a similar personality? Do you have a similar sense of humor? Or maybe you text using the exact same emojis. But chances are there's something that you have in common with this person. Otherwise, they're probably not your friend. I teach in the organization and management area at the Goizueta Business School at Emory University, and I research how people develop their social networks and social capital. Now, when people hear business school and they hear the word capital, they automatically assume financial capital, cash, revenue, assets, profit. But the truth of the matter is, none of us would be here in this room today without the level of social capital that we have received in our lives. So what is social capital? Social capital is the favors, the resources, the exchange, the advice that you receive from the personal connections that you have developed in your life. Social capital is how we hear about new job opportunities. It's also what allows us to go to the symphony for free, because your coworker can no longer make his tickets tonight, and you're in line to receive those tickets just because you happen to know that person. And yet, at the business school and in the real world, we don't spend a whole lot of time talking about how to invest in our social capital. We spend a lot of time talking about how to invest in financial capital, but maybe we should spend a little more time talking about how to invest in our social capital. Now, it's not that most of us lack social capital in an absolute sense. We all have it. It's just that it's likely a little bland. Chances are you tend to hang out with the same type of person who thinks like you, who speaks like you, who behaves like you. And there's a missed opportunity there with that. So if you are a college student, chances are that you form most of your friends sometime during your freshman year. If you're one of the lucky ones, you met someone during orientation week, and maybe they're still your best friend to this day. Most of us don't have that smooth of an experience, but you end up eventually finding your group sometime by the end of your freshman year, and you don't really bother venturing out beyond that. And I'm here to tell you why this is the worst way to build social capital. One of the things that we do at the business school is we really have a heavy emphasis on what leadership is. What does good leadership actually require? Well, at minimum, good leadership requires perspective taking and empathic concern. But you can't really develop these things if you are just surrounded by people who look like you, who think like you, and who behave like you. At minimum, you need different perspectives and to hear what the other side has to say. Think about almost any other pursuit in life. Think about your favorite athlete, for instance. To be the best athlete possible, an athlete doesn't just do the same moves over and over again. They incorporate a variety of exercises. So Monday might be weights, Tuesday might be cardio, Wednesday might be stretching and yoga. But the idea is you need these varieties, all these routines to become the best well-rounded athlete possible. Same goes with the healthy diet. A healthy diet doesn't just consist of one type of food. You need a good mix of proteins, of fats, of carbohydrates, and essential nutrients and vitamins, and that's ultimately what allows you to live the healthiest life possible. So I'm here to tell you about how can we inject a healthy amount of variety into our social networks. And the answer comes from creating what are called weak ties. Now, there's a 3-step process in how you can actually do this. Weak ties are the people that you know, but you don't spend a ton of time with. So you wouldn't call them your intimate friends, but these are the acquaintances. And there are lots of benefits for forming these weak ties. So how do we do this? The first thing that you can do is really leverage these natural windows of opportunity that we have in our lives. So if you're at work, one project comes to an end, another begins. If you're a college student, when one academic semester finishes, another one begins. And during those transition periods, you always have an opportunity to meet someone new. So at the start of the academic semester, go sit next to somebody that you've previously never had a conversation with. Don't sit next to the person that you've been sitting with for the last 2 semesters. Ask yourself this: are they so interesting that you have to sit with that person every single time that you have a brand new class, if you sit with somebody new, I guarantee you that by the end of the semester, you will have learned something far more interesting about the world. The same applies at the workplace as well. When one project ends, go talk to somebody. Go sit down and have lunch with somebody that you've never had a conversation with. And you're likely to learn something that you previously had no interest in. The second way to form weak ties is to leverage your major transitions. So this is when you move to a new city for a new job, or you know that you're going to be abroad in Barcelona for the next 3 months. This is the perfect low-stakes opportunity to reach out and ask questions, because no one's going to judge you for not knowing the things that you're not supposed to know. So if you knock on your neighbor's door because you genuinely just want to know, hey, where is the best spot for coffee in this town? Where do you get your pizza? Where do you get your tacos? People are going to be thrilled that you actually want to know, and they'll be more than willing to share their opinions with you. So always leverage those major transitions. And the third and final way is that a lot of us already have these weak ties. It's just that these ties have become dormant over the years. So you probably did meet somebody in middle school or high school, but it's been 10 years since you spoke to Jason. And now you're wondering, well, should I reach back out? Even if I did, I don't even know that we would have anything to talk about. Well, reach out to him. Because some of the most gratifying moments in our lives are when people re-enter our lives just as we thought we had forgotten all about them. Those can be some of the most gratifying conversations that we have. So what do you get from forming these weak ties? What are the benefits? Well, in 1973, Mark Granovetter found the strength of weak ties, and that most people actually found their jobs through having weak ties because you have access to non-redundant information. And more or less for the last 50 or so years, those findings have been replicated. But I'm not here to talk about the professional benefits. I'm here to talk about the real career benefits, the personal benefits, the mental benefits, the emotional benefits, right? So what do you get from forming these weak ties? The first thing that you get is emotional comfort. People who have weak ties are more likely to have an increased sense of belonging in the world, because you no longer see yourself as just belonging to this one community. And you begin to see, oh, I could see myself fitting into this part of the world. And I actually feel like there are people in this community that understand me as well. And this same line of research finds that as people age, they're actually less likely to experience loneliness. The second benefit that you get from this are cognitive. People who have weak ties are more likely to develop a growth mindset, because people you meet from different backgrounds force you to challenge, force you to think about your beliefs and assumptions in a different way. And you're having to have conversations that don't flow as naturally at first, but you're having to dig a little deeper. And over time, you get better at forming these connections. And third and finally, the last thing that you get is you give yourself more opportunities to have these micro moments of what I like to call human connectivity. So this is your pleasant wave, the acknowledging head nod, the random joke that you share with the barista, right? But these little moments in our daily lives can serve as our daily dose of vitamins, especially in an era of today where it's so easy for us to just look straight into our phones and not connect with people that are in our environment. I want to end this talk with a personal anecdote. So I teach organizational behavior at the business school, and the thing that I will remember most about last semester is I had 2 students who always sat in the front row of every class. Now, if you were to see these 2 students, they could not be more different. You would never guess that these 2 were friends. You wouldn't think that they would have anything to talk about. But a funny thing started to happen. Before class, they would talk to one another. A week or 2 later, they began sharing jokes and laughter together, before class, of course. And then a month or so later, you could actually see that their confidence started to grow. They felt more comfortable speaking up in class. They challenged each other to think about ideas in different ways. And eventually, their performance in class actually improved. But most importantly, above anything else, both students actually came out to me after the semester and told me that their time in class was made that much more meaningful because they got to know somebody that they previously had not known. And I think this serves as a powerful reminder for all of us that if that is the case, we should intentionally be trying to seek out weak ties as often as we can. I started this talk talking about the difference between financial capital and social capital. But the biggest difference to me is that with financial capital, there's always risk. So you put your money in, and after a certain amount of time, you're hoping that there's a return on your investment, but there might not be. But with social capital, there's almost no downside. What is the risk of trying to form a new connection with somebody that you previously didn't already know? That they don't want to form that connection, so you didn't lose anything. So when we look at it from that perspective, the risk to reward ratio is fairly clear. We should absolutely, intentionally be trying to craft as much social capital through these weak ties as much as we can, because there is so little to lose and so much to gain. Thank you.